question is going to be for James Aries. Thanks for coming in. So production start was delayed due to several circumstances beyond the company's influence. What is the current status regarding the production start?
Well, if you'd asked me back in 2020, I'd say this is the year for us to get into production. But then obviously a pandemic and lockdowns, and then 2021 was a very hostile TSX. But where we are at the moment in production now is we're just about to complete a big property purchase of 50 acres. We've got Knight Piesel building the tailings dam. We've got Union Pacific just renovating the rail. We've just bought our own water wells and we're upgrading those. We've upgraded the gas and we've got all the utilities sorted. We've got the plant at site and we've got steel and ancillary equipment arriving probably later this month. That's at sea at the moment. And obviously we've got all of that government-backed financing as well that's going to pay for the next flotation plant as well. So it's obviously all steam ahead on the production front. We're trying to just drill down there and get there as quickly as possible. I've almost given up and been banned from the board now about predicting like when production is going to start now, because there's always something nonsense that creeps up. But I can't see why we won't be in production later this year. I mean, we've got the plant there, we've got the land, we've got all the utilities set up, the mining permits are there. We just need to get that plant installed, start throwing things into it, and anything we can't turn into lumps immediately, we'll just sit there until the flotation plant is available, and then we'll chuck it into the flotation plant early next year and have 2 product lines.
Great, good answer. So we'll move on there, and if anybody has any questions from Aries, just throw it in the chat, or of course go live and say it there. And so we'll move on for Saville Resources, also in the boardroom, Mike. So thanks for coming in here. The first question: what/when is the next expected update in terms of news releases?
Well, it would. We don't have anything directly set up, but we will be having a drill program this summer. So at the very latest, it would be something along the lines of us mobilizing a drill and or financing. There's a few things, but you can phone me anytime. I'll give you an answer on just about anything I can.
And another question here: since your Covette property is situated near Patriot Battery Metals and has such similar terrain, do you think there's a possibility of finding lithium at Covette?
There is a possibility. There's a few pegmatites on the ground itself. We tested one in would have been like 2018. Came back with that pegmatite came back with minimal lithium, but we have found another pegmatite that hasn't been sampled yet that is across the lake. It looks very similar to Patriot's spodumene pegmatites. So we're excited to get in there this summer as well and test that. We will keep you updated as soon as we can. And I can't wait to answer your phone calls.
Great.
So I just interject a little bit. I showed a picture of the ground on Saville's property to one of the PMET guys trading $4 or whatever, and I showed him a picture of Mike's or the Saville property and asked him where that was, and he said, well, clearly it's our property, but where it was actually taken, I don't know. But I had kind of set him up a little bit, because Saville used the same helicopter as PMET did. So on Saville's property was this beautiful orange helicopter. It certainly made it look like it was PMET's property, but
it was actually PMET who used the same helicopter as us, because we were in there first.
All right.
Okay, so next company, moving on. Thanks, Mike. Commerce Resources. Chris, if you could unmute yourself there. Now, I know these questions get asked to you every once in a while, but I'll ask them again. What are the next steps to advance the ASRAM into production?
The most important next steps would be, to complete the pre-feasibility study, and we are very hard at work with all of our associates working on that right now. There's just a huge list of items that are being looked at this point in time. And, including the selection of the site for the downstream hydrometallurgical facility, transport logistics, the location of the marine facility on the Coxsackie River, ultimately potentially lightering from a barge to a bulk carrier in the mouth of the Coxsackie River, continued optimization of our process design for the flow sheet. All of that is ongoing right now. There still is, I think everybody in the industry will understand and agree and complain about the frustrating backlog of the assay labs, which still seems to be more based on a lack of human resources at the assay labs. We are paying for the fastest turnaround time for our metallurgical assays at Hazen Research in Colorado, which is supposed to be 5 days, but it has actually been as much as 18 business days. And so that is very frustrating. And that does then ultimately delay the pre-feasibility study. However, right now, Hazen is also working on the production of 2.5 kilograms of the 50% rare earth carbonate concentrate that we first news released on March 23rd, and then we news released on May 12th. We had produced 55 grams of this material, and we had actually improved it by 1 percentage point in what is most important, which is its distribution of neodymium and praseodymium, which are two of the most important rare earth elements for the manufacture of permanent magnets. So again, Hazen is producing 2.5 kilos of this material for delivery to industry processors as per their request. So ultimately, as we continue to work on the pre-fees, we believe that right now is the most appropriate time, or over the next quarter is the most appropriate time for us to actually engage, secure an industry partner so that they actually have a seat at our table in terms of then having input into what we produce and how much we produce of that for the next several generations. So it's an extremely dynamic time for us, a very exciting time. And we certainly look forward to completing the production of this 2.5 kilos and delivering it to these industry majors.
And now just to follow up on that question, do you see yourself carrying into production, or would you be open to a buyout?
We act for the best interests of our shareholders, and if there was a compelling offer with a management team that actually understands the rare earth elements and that would benefit the shareholders, we would certainly look at it. Ultimately, though, I think since we understand more about the Canadian regulatory system in terms of advancing a mineral project into production, I think arguably we would likely stay in control. But, if the right offer came along and we felt that all of the investors would potentially benefit from this, we would certainly look at it.
Okay, great. So we'll move on here. If you have any questions for Chris, just put it in the chat. We'll ask Gratomic here, Armando or Glenda, whichever one here. We'll ask a few Gratomic questions, and I think we'll move on to another company and come back to Gratomic because I think there's a few more as well. And this will be a technical one. So Armando, this probably will be for you. How much, if any, SG16 material will be produced in 2022? And what is the approximate cost per ton to produce 1 ton each of coated and uncoated?
We don't have plans of producing any SG16 in 2022. This is a second phase of the project. In 2022, we are focusing only on the concentrator that will produce the M97 material, which is the precursor for the spherical graphite.
Okay, and just following up on that, what will the M97 product be used for, and at what price will it be sold?
Yeah, the M97 product is used, as I mentioned, as a precursor for the spherical graphite. So it's a feed material that has to be milled, spheronized, and purified to generate the for example, the SG16. If the market price for this type of material, usually it's around $1,000. It changes depending on the grade. For example, Benchmark Minerals, which is one of the companies that follow up on those price, they only list price for the 95% purity, and we'll offer a 97% purity. So we have a premium to, let's say, what is the regular market price.
All right, and can vein graphite be blended, or is it compatible with flake graphite in the manufacture of EV batteries?
It is compatible. The vein graphite that traditionally hits the market coming from Sri Lanka comes in lumps. And because it comes in lumps, it is used in application where a lump is required, for example, to make an electrode and things like that. As we were producing on more commercial scale, we will run the vein graphite through the flotation plant. So we'll crush that material. And at the end, it will have a similar presentation in form of a powder with flakes as the regular flake graphite has. So it can be mixed.
Great. And I'll ask one more and then we'll move on and probably come back to you here. So GRAT intended to fully power its Ockham plant through solar energy by 2022. Is there any update on this?
Yeah, it's probably not going to happen in 2022. We are finishing now. We do have an update, some updated quotes that we did, not just to power the plant, but also to have the battery packs. But this is most likely coming in when we start ramping up the production, where we'll have a higher energy demand, and it's sometime in 2023.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we'll have a few more for you, Mindo, so if you could just hang on. But we'll move on here to SWMBRD Sports. Justin, I see you there. If you could just unmute yourself and I'll go into the first question. So first question being, will the company focus on retail or commercial sales first?
Excellent question. As many of you may know, our principal strategic focus was going to be the resorts, and that still is a big component. But I can tell you that we are going to open the retail doors way sooner than expected. The first boards are imminent now. We want to see those boards and feel them and ride them ourselves, obviously. Once we're satisfied with what we've got, we are probably going to start opening to retail. When I say that, it'll be usually about July we're looking at. This will obviously involve a fair amount of stick handling because we have had so much interest, and that interest is coming from all over the world, which was never really anticipated this early. That we have made a decision that there really is no way through the rapids except to go right into them. And if the demand is there, let's give them the board. So yes, retail will be moved forward, but we will still obviously be looking to close large commercial deals with hotel chains.
All right. And what about a dual listing on a European exchange? Is there any plans for that?
When we close the current round of financing and the warrant exercise, which is going well, that will be one of our priorities, the OTC, and then obviously getting ourselves listed on Frankfurt. It's very important for us to be in front of both of those audiences. I can add to that we will be going with Zimtu, and proudly so, to the PDHC. We were in the booth with Zimtu at VREC. It was an overwhelming success, and we were anticipating a great reaction at PDAC with the Zimtu gang. In other words, we will be exposed to an international audience in Toronto. And it's the first time that PDAC, to my experience, has happened at the beginning of summer. So getting on the European and US exchanges is a priority for us as soon as we close up this round of financing.
All right, and a few more questions here. What does Chairman Chris Kypriotis bring to the team?
What Chris brings to the team is an almost unduplicatable breadth of experience. Not only was he Vice President of Nike Global and President of Nike Brazil, but he was on the other side, the VP of Billabong and the CEO of Rusty Surfboard. So he is a unique cross-pollination of the world of big brands and clothing and apparel and the board sports industry. He is still the chairman of EuroSEAM, the European Surf Industry Manufacturing Association. What he brings is he's a phenomenal gate opener. Once we are through this stage, which is we have the material board in our hand, that's when he really will be unleashed to begin to bring together strategic partnerships, which is how we are going to expand this brand as fast as possible. I hope that answers your question.
Absolutely, yeah. And the last question here, what does the company plan on doing with that raise that you just mentioned?
I can list the priorities, as I mentioned before, listing on the OTC and the Frankfurt Exchange, building up an inventory beforehand of boards as soon as possible, getting a teenage board and quite possibly a toddler, the molds for those two boards underway. Those will be huge markets for us. The molds take time to make, as all of the shareholders know. The design's done, and obviously marketing. There will be less travel involved. Matthew is going to stay permanently stationed in Greece by himself, handling the Divani and all of the hotel side of it. Gareth and I will be principally focused in the Canadian market in Vancouver and local environs. And then right in September, there will be funds set aside for taking the board on a large scale to Brazil and opening up that sector. We already have interest from very big players in Brazil, one of the big sporting goods companies. So we're not going to over raise in this round of financing, but we will raise enough to complete those objectives.
Great. All right. Thanks, Justin. So we'll move on here. Steve from Eagle Bay. I'll give you a sec to unmute yourself here. The first question we have, so you recently concluded a site visit, and you can see that the property is huge if you're able to see any of those pictures. What part of that property is excited you the most, and where will you be drilling first?
Yeah, great, excellent question. Thanks, Colton. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone attending. Yes, we did attend the site of Eagle Bay Resources, 85 kilometers northeast of Prince George, just last week. I had two geologists up there. To note here, one of the geologists that was with me, Alex Knox, he is also responsible for one of the Commerce property as well as Saville. So he definitely has a lot of the experience in the rare earth element market. One of the encouraging things that he saw was actually some of the outcrop that is on the Wichita, and visibly already able to see some very exciting, encouraging rare earths right there. So for us, as we've came back, we've put our heads together, and we would like to do some rock sampling, some soil sampling, prospecting, which can go a very, very long way in this market, and that will give us a better target of where we want to pinpoint our first drill.
And to follow up on that, when do you anticipate starting that first drill program?
That first drill program, I mean, we could be seeing that the next, at least by the end of summer. Could be sooner, weather dependent. However, as I've said before, doing this prospecting, the soil sampling, rock sampling can give us some really, really exciting and encouraging results that is going to benefit us in the long run, as opposed to just grabbing a drill and putting it who knows where. So we like to not necessarily take too much time, but we have such a large property. Both geologists have suggested, we want to, explore all of this, as we definitely have the resources for a market that is lacking the supply.
Great. All right. That's all we got for you there, Steve. If anything comes in, I'll let you know. So we'll move on here, Pat. Pat Power from Arctic Star. Thanks for coming. And that was a great image of the kimberlite there. We do have a few questions. So I heard drilling finished probably early June, but any general time frame for the results?
Well, the first result will be the new kimberlite. We're going to push that through SRC real quickly. So that will be the next 3 to 5 weeks. And right after that, you'll see some results from Sequoia, and that'll be on an ongoing basis. A lot of tonnage was put in there. So we'll probably get a result every 2 to 4 weeks from Sequoia to give us the understanding of how we're going to do the bulk sample next year. So that's what the purpose of putting those holes into Sequoia was, is to understand where, well, two things: to delineate the pipe itself, to find out exact dimensions, and to figure out where we're going to take the bulk sample tonnage from. So that's going to be coming out after Arbutus's result. So you can see the first results on the caustic fusion side within 3 to 5 weeks.
Great.
And then after that, for about 2 or 3 months, you'll see more and more diamond results from Sequoia.
Okay, great. And we have one more here. A bit of a different question. Why doesn't Arctic Star take over Margaret Lake to get the remaining 15% of Diagra?
No comment on that one. It's lots of things are in the air, so the board will make that decision after contemplation and discussion. And it's we're at the moment happy with 81.5%. If you look at the past, Diamet, who was kind of the king of the diamond world in Canada back in the 90s, they started it all, had a whole 29% of that discovery and went to 80 some odd dollars. So I don't think you need 100%. It's nice for someone to carry. The exploration in the diamond world is not cheap. So having someone pick up to 18.5% isn't necessarily a bad thing in our books.
Great. So we did get a question in from Robert in the chat for James from Aries. Are companies lining up to purchase the product after mining begins?
They're lining up to purchase the product before mining begins. So we've basically everything that we can produce is already spoken for. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows about damaged supply chains, difficulty with importing. I mean, the US imports about 1 million tons of this stuff every year anyway. And actually, if you include all of the downstream products from fluorspar, then it's probably several million tons of this. It's difficult to get hold of. It's becoming in short supply. High grade is difficult to get, especially without impurities or anything like that. Yeah, it's already all spoken for pretty much. We've already signed with several large multinational companies to sell this stuff to them.
Great. And to follow up on that, what price will the acid spar bring and when will it be available for sale? P.S. You're his favorite CEO as well.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Doug. So the price of acid spar, actually, interestingly enough, we've got a partner in Asia who has some Thailand and Laos fluorspar mines. And recently their acid spar price jumped from about $600 a ton and they were selling at $900 a ton at the moment. And that's probably partly a, I don't know, global issues and supply chain issues and shipping issues and all that sort of thing. But generally all resources have been going up in price. And so now what we're going to sell for will be obviously market links. Like a lot of the big companies have been putting a lot of pressure on us to do a cost plus model, which means that whatever the mine costs plus a little bit of profit extra. And we've refused those kind of arrangements and we've made it a market link thing. At the moment, if we were to be selling, acid spar could go up to anything like $900 a ton, whereas a lot of our financial models were being done at 500, 550, things like that. And it probably looks like with the war going on as well, it might be even more, it might be even higher now because Russia produced a lot of fluorspar as well. So yeah, it's probably in the region of getting closer to 1,000 than a mid-1,000.
Great. All right, so that's all we have for the written in questions. So I'll go through some of the questions that have been posed in the chat here. So Gratomic, Armando, if you're available again, I'll just get you to unmute yourself and then I'll give you a second here. So one of the questions we had, actually this is a written in one, is will cash on hand be able to support current operations until expected revenues? And what is the monthly cash burn rate?
Yeah, I'm not authorized to disclose cash burn rates in an interview. We have many shareholders supporting the company until we generate revenue, and we have our ways to finance. That's all I can say.
Okay, no problem. Is there any? When do we intend when do we intend on exchange uplisting?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, it was worded a bit weird. When do we intend on exchange uplisting?
Exchange uplisting. We don't have a deadline for that yet. We're assessing it.
Okay, no problem. Now I'll go through some of these chat questions here. What are the challenges to bring Occam into production?
We just have to finish the operational readiness process, which we recently started. We have to make some adjustments in the process that were identified as we went through the normal process development plan, and that's it. We have a team ready to do that, and we're moving on. We don't see any red flags in this process.
Great. And then there was just a follow-up on an earlier question regarding the cost per ton to produce coated and uncoated graphite.
Yeah, this is something that we don't disclose because there are many variables involved. And as we develop the process, the costs also change. When we have a defined figures, we'll public that, we'll make that public through our press releases.
Right. Another one here in your corporate presentation, page 5, estimated product development timeline. Is there a reason why you expect Capim Grosso to surpass Occam in terms of production? Is Capim Grosso better or easier to extract than Occam?
No, it's because we actually believe, we are still making the geological research, but we believe that the size of the deposit in Capim Grosso will surpass what we expect to find in Occam. So that's the reason why we intend to make a larger production out of that asset.
All right. And when do you expect results from SGS of the first product in bag that was sent over a month ago?
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a date yet. SGS, as any other laboratories in Canada, are pretty packed those days, and they were not able to give me a date yet, maybe in July, but I still don't have a confirmation on that.
Okay, and so this is regarding SG16. So SG16 must be 99.95% pure. Some are strict about the remaining impurities, and it can be costly. How will GRAT tackle this issue?
Well, we're looking at many different environmentally sound ways of going through this purification process. We don't have the question closed yet, so we're still developing it.
All right, and just one more here. During the micronization stage, how much graphite material is needed to produce 1 ton of micronized SG16?
Yeah, with the technology that we intend to use, the typical yield on the micronization stage is 70%. So for every kilo of feed material that you enter in micronization, you get 700 grams of spherical graphite.
Okay, great. So that's all the questions that we've got in here. If anybody has any that I may have missed or wanted to put in the chat, I'll give you a second. So David's asked here, is the deal with Todak still in place? Do they have rights to our first batches of product produced?
The contract is not voided or anything. It's just that they have not been very active, but we're still in touch with them.
And just to follow up, that was actually another question that came in. Is the plant under construction yet for ARS? And if so, how many workers on site?
All right, this might have been missed because I think we covered something very similar to this earlier. So we've just completed a property purchase down in Delta, Utah. That was 50 acres of land. So there's different things going on at the moment. There's the tailings dam, which NIPs are building at the moment. That's underway. The rail construction is underway too. The plant is delivered to site at the moment. We're just waiting for some steel and ancillary equipment to arrive. And we've got the contracts for the EPCM contractors sorted for the installation of that. Plus, we've got a few guys from other fluorspar projects coming over to manage the installation of that. And we started as well the initial construction work, such as upgrading gas, upgrading utilities. So that's all in place. We've got it industrially zoned, and we've got all the planning permits done. So it's pretty. Oh yeah, and sorry, the other good thing as well is that the property we just bought comes with all the buildings already built, so we don't need to construct those anymore. So we save on the cost and the time of those, and it's just off the highway as well, so we don't need to do any road upgrades or anything like that.
Great. All right, so that's all we have so far. Again, I'll give it a minute. Anybody has any other questions? And just a reminder, these videos all get posted to our YouTube channel, the recordings. So we'll split it up and make sure it's easy to find whatever company you're most interested in. You can skip right ahead to them, but I'll just give it a minute or two here. Oh, here was one in for Gratomic. When is Gratomic targeting first revenues for Occam?
Yeah, the idea is to have some revenues by the end of this year or the latest beginning of 2023.
Great. All right, well,
All right, folks, thanks for coming. Great questions. We're always pleased to be able to provide this service to investors so they can ask their questions direct. Thanks for coming. See you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Thanks for watching the video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe so that you don't miss another update.